Coming up this week on the Nintendo Directors Podcast, Pokemon Let's Go and Super Smash Bros. Are in a battle for sales supremacy. We do our soundtrack review of Super Mario Sunshine, our top 5 hidden gems of the NES console, and more.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Brad.
We're two middle school band directors.
And you're listening to
Nintendo Directors. Hello, greetings, and welcome once again to another Nintendo Directors Podcast. This is episode number 3036. The date is Sunday, November 25th, when we are recording this, and you are receiving this on Thursday, November 29th of the year 2018. By the way, my name is Mark Lego. I'm here with my co-host, Brad Beyer.
Hey there.
And we're two band directors, and we really like Nintendo things. And if this is your first time listening, we are an every other week podcast. We wave sticks at kids for a living by day. I'm reading this, and I'm reading it terribly, so I'm not even going to say it anymore. I did that one last week, too. So
you can just mess it up. Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
So...
Make up your own, I don't care.
Yeah, by the way, we fly by the seat of our pants as well on this. But we also...
That's the story of my life. Just
yeah, that is life. So, but anyways, if you have ever caught an episode of our podcast and you've not gone to iTunes to review us, that would be awesome of you if you went ahead and did that right now. But yeah, you can find us on iTunes and all of the other major podcasting services. You can find us on YouTube. We have Brandon Pruitt doing video producing of us now, so you can go over to YouTube and actually watch us talk, which is much more interesting than just listening to us talk, because we make faces at each other while we do this. But that's not true, but whatever. So anyways, we are an every other week podcast. We post every other Thursday at 9 a.m., give or take. And this is a fun episode because I love digging deep into NES games that people don't really know. So I can't wait to get to that part of it. But there's a lot to get to before we do that. So why don't we move on and get to the news? All right, the news. The news this week is brought to you by my newly cleaned out basement. Yes, it is sentient, and it decided to sponsor the news this time. I just cleaned out my basement over Thanksgiving break, and yeah, Brad and I, we're on Thanksgiving break right now. We're at the end of it, although I think that we
maybe extended?
We might get an extra day with a snow day tomorrow, but yeah, I cleaned out my basement. It's now an official gaming room, and it's so fun to be in, so... Yeah, I'm excited. We'll have to do an episode over here at some point. So
there you go.
But anyways, let's do some news stuff. So Brad, go ahead.
Sweet, let's do it. Well, hey, you've heard of the Pokemons? The kids these days. Yes, they seem to like it. The kids and the not so kids, they must have really liked it because this Pokemon Let's Go Eevee thing has sold just an absurd amount. It sold 3 million copies in its first week.
That's insane.
It's officially the fastest selling Switch game ever.
Yeah.
Which is really impressive because, well, I guess maybe there were supply limitations or whatever, but the opening of the opening of the Switch when it first came out, like they sold millions of those right away, you know. Oh man, right. Brandon's showing us his Pokemon Plus.
Yes.
The thing. Very cool. He's very excited about that. But yes, Pokemon Let's Go has sold quite a few units, and that's pretty cool. I mean, it doesn't necessarily surprise me, but because first of all, there's the whole, there's two games that are sort of the same thing. I'm not a Pokemon guy. Is that how it works, Brandon? Like there's the two games are essentially the same thing, but they okay, so you can only okay. So I apologize to our listeners if maybe you didn't hear that, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the audio is not coming through, which is okay. That's by design, I guess. But So what he's saying essentially is that it limits you with specific Pokemon, but a lot of it is the same kind of thing. Anyway, many people choose to buy both of those games anyway. So I'm assuming that they're putting the Let's Go Pokemon and Let's Go Eevee in the same sales category for that. But either way, that's a lot. Now, however, this is an interesting two stories to kind of together. So, great sales for Pokemon. Best-selling Switch game ever. But right behind it, and not even out yet, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is now the best pre-selling Smash game and the best pre-selling Switch game ever. So both of those things combined together to say, in pre-sales, what the heck is this game going to do when it actually launches?
No kidding. No kidding. Because I know I'm not the only one. I haven't pre-purchased it yet, and I'm absolutely getting the game. So, but man, what is it going to be, like 10 million? I mean,
right
in the first day.
I don't even know. It's a lot. There's definitely a lot of people who are anticipating this game, and obviously, we could look back on the Wii U days. If the Smash Brothers couldn't save the Wii U, nothing could, and that kind of turned out to be the case. And yet, that game still sold a bundle of copies.
It had a huge attach rate, yeah.
Exactly. And so now that, and that game was phenomenal, right? So this is even bigger, even though it doesn't have trophies, which I'm sad about. But it's there's so much to do in it anyway. But by the way, speaking of Smash, word to the wise. There have been people talking on the Facebooks and I'm sure the Reddits and all these places that there is live video of the actual game out in people's hands right now. And so just be wary if you don't want spoilers for especially the single player mode, the World of Light stuff. Yeah,
that's the thing that I would think people would be concerned about, like catching spoilers if you didn't want to have any of that spoiled for you, like the actual gameplay. Smash is Smash. Like
we know Smash, for and like all the characters basically.
Yeah, for like 1% of the Smash population out there, they might be like, no, I don't want spoilers for like how that move looks slightly tweaked from like the trailer. It's like it's Smash is Smash. Like we know what's going to happen. You're going to get a Royal Rumble of Nintendo characters, and it's going to be sweet. So
yeah, and we are less than 2 weeks away from that game.
That's insane.
Just crazy.
We are less than 2 weeks away from each taking a week off of work.
No, we gotta wait 4 weeks for that, and then we get 2 weeks off. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Christmas break coming up. So,
dude, I have so much to play in this Christmas break. I have so much to play.
Yep.
Which is I'm not complaining about that, but man, there's gonna be so much to play because. Well, we'll get to what I'm playing right now, but then there's still that Smash, obviously, and Just Cause 4, and that Sega Genesis collection that I'm so excited about.
The horizon is a bright, shiny object.
Yeah,
so.
This is, for not having a Zelda/Mario combo like last year, this has been a pretty darn good year.
It sure has.
I can't complain too much. So
speaking of Zelda.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this was something that Brandon brought to our attention right before we started recording, and then sure enough, we go and check it out, and there's rumors and
keyword there,
widespread rumors that Skyward Sword is going to be coming to the Switch, which I think cool, great. I never played Skyward Sword, and I always loved the art style of it. I think it looked great. And I'm interested in seeing how the Switch HD Rumble motion controller Joy-Cons will work when you don't have the Wii Motion Plus dongle attached to it, which dongle is the worst word in the history of electronics. It's just gonna say that, but
sure.
But I'm hoping it works just as well. I imagine it will, and that was the thing that caught my eye the most with Skyward Sword. Even when Shigeru was, I always say it wrong, but I know it's Shigeru, but I like saying Shigeru. Even when he was having problems with it at the E3 demonstration where he was claiming cell phones were interfering with the Wii Motion Plus, whatever. I've been wanting to do that for a long time, to have that precise one-to-one movement, and so coming to the
It'll
Switch.
be an interesting test of the Joy-Con, functionality in that sense. I think there's only a couple of games really that use that. I think World of Goo was re-released on the system, and it uses the pointer. But I have to imagine if they're remastering the game for Switch, they might make a few changes. Because, I mean, imagine trying to play that game with a Pro Controller and
right.
Trying to do the motions of that.
People ripping like Pro Controllers in half accidentally.
Right.
Yeah,
it's the Wii controller days all over again.
Yep. But that's great.
How was that ever a thing, by the way? I don't.
Yeah. That was a weird era. That was a really weird era for gaming. But so, anyways.
But man, Skyward Sword, I look back on it now, and I think I would enjoy it if I played it again. I did play it to completion. I think I 100%ed it when I played it. I definitely don't look at it as fondly as some of the other Zelda games in the series. And honestly, there are a couple other Zelda games that I would prefer to see remastered or put out on Switch, like, Wind Waker HD, for instance. I really want that on Switch.
Yeah, bring that over. That wouldn't be that hard.
It would seem like it, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely would like to see some other games come to the Switch before Skyward Sword. But hey, if we get Skyward Sword, I'm not going to complain. I'll definitely play it again, probably. Who am I kidding? It's a Zelda game. I'm going to buy it again.
I just like that. I'm definitely playing it again, probably. Nice little qualifier.
It's confirmed maybe that it might happen.
Yes, and it's a confirmed definitely probably that Brad will play it again through the completion, probably. So
but yeah, Skyward Sword, that game did some really cool things. I mean, again, it was still kind of part of the quote old style of the Ocarina of Time formula that many people they looking back on it, they decided might have gotten a little bit stale. But again, it's still a first party Nintendo Zelda core franchise game, and that means it's got some great characters, it's got some fantastically built designed dungeons, and some really, in fact, we were talking before on the pre-show. That I think the last dungeon in Skyward Sword is probably one of the best dungeons that Nintendo ever made. It's the one where you're constantly like spinning the entire dungeon itself in multiple levels and doing multiple different heights and stuff. It's like a big the whole dungeon is a puzzle to a greater extent than even other Zelda dungeons have been puzzles in the past. Not to mention the individual rooms that you're completing as you go. So, and there was some good stuff there. I loved how they reinvented the different zones. Like you go to the forest area, and then all of a sudden you come back to it later, and it's completely flooded, and that changes the way that you do it. So, any thoughts on?
Yeah. I'm. If it's priced right, that's a definite buy for me. I missed out on Wind Waker on the GameCube, so when that came out on the Wii U, I purchased that right away and loved it. So I don't want to miss out on this one again. So I would grab this one right away. So
okay, awesome. All right, next up on the lineup here, we've got some more DLC coming for Mario Tennis Aces, coming in early 2019. It includes at least 3 new characters, and those would be Luma, who is the little star that Rosalina carries around with her. And then Boom Boom, who's sort of the mini boss guy that you fight in Super Mario Bros. 3 a lot, and he comes up in a lot of other Mario games as well. And then, sorry, my eyes are blanking here. Oh, Pauline, which is, from Donkey Kong and highly prominent in Super Mario Odyssey as well. So that'd be pretty cool. Any thoughts on those characters, Mark?
Great.
Yeah, right.
I don't play Mario Tennis.
You're right. I don't either. That's why I kind of passed it to you.
No, it is kind of cool to hear that they're supporting it still. That means that there's sure. enough of a player base to warrant doing that. Right. So that's cool. Good. And I've often thought about renting Mario Tennis, but from the library, which I'll talk about more library rentals here shortly. But
yeah.
But yeah, no, that's cool that people are playing it. I know of a couple people that were mentioning it when it was coming out, saying that they were excited for it. So that's great.
Sure. Cool. Let's do number 6 maybe and come back.
Yeah.
Cool. And then of course this one maybe you can speak to a little bit more, but the final, the end of the end content update for Splatoon 2 is going to be coming out next month. Apparently it's going to be including 8 new weapons. Man, it seems like there's a lot of weapons.
That's yeah.
And let's just finish. And then so 4 of these have already been revealed. They include the ballpoint splatting nouveau, the Nautilus 79, the custom Explosure, I like that name, and the Bloblobber Deco. The Bloblobber Deco?
Yeah, sure. So I do enjoy Splatoon. I was looking. I think I've logged like 45 hours on that game. Wow. I think it's great. I super fun. And when they say they're adding 8 new weapons, my answer to my initial reaction is like, don't you already have over 5,000 weapons in that game? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe more. Maybe less. I don't really care. I found a couple that I like, and it's like, yep, I switch between these two, and when I can get an upgrade that's similar to it, I'll grab that. But I mean. There's just so many weapons in that game, and it's actually not it's incredibly overwhelming to me when I go through the menu to try and purchase one, and then you can go test it out, and then I'm just like, I want to just play the game. This one looks great. I'll grab that, and that seems like like it has the right power up set with it, the sub weapons and stuff. Like, cool, that's what I want, and I don't need to look through all 5,008 weapons. So, but whatever. It's such a good game. So, the fact that they have been supporting it with all this free content updating for so long, that's awesome. It is sad to hear that it's coming to an end. But I imagine that means that work will be in earnest on Splatoon 3. My guess. So,
so that was what, a year and a half ago? Was it July? July?
So. Yeah.
Of that first year of the Switch, yeah. So it's been going for quite some time.
Yeah, and it is so good. If you're listening and you've been on the fence, if you get a chance, you should absolutely pick this up because it's just fun. It's just a fun game. So, yeah.
Cool.
So our last news item, this one's one that we're excited to do, and we're also excited to have a lot of you be upset at us, but whatever. So we're gonna give because Pokemon Let's Go and Eevee, Pikachu Go, because it sold so well, and because we are such big fans of Nintendo.
Yes.
We're. It's not that we're anti-fans of this game, but we're going to give you our impressions without having played the games. So one of my favorite things about these games is that they exist. I also I really enjoy the real-time strategy element of it because you're playing in world real time. You're in your life,
right.
And you've got to decide whether you're buying both or not. So there's the strategy. Therein lies the strategy. Are you buying one or two of these games? Do you really want to contribute to that 3 million doubly? So I like that. I like that part of it. I'm glad to hear that Dusty Diamonds, gets a bit of a nod of the hat from it. So that was really cool. Yeah. That because Frogger
our work here, Mark, is making a difference. Finally,
I agree.
Dusty Diamond is getting his due.
Yep. Because I believe they walked past a school at one point. So in the Pokemon game, and so that's the school from the schoolyard level in. Dusty Diamond. So, Brad, what are your first impressions of this game?
So, I am just so impressed that they are branching out with this entry in the series. The first person shooter spot, it blew me away.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I've been playing along, and they don't give the Pokemon blood, but you do just get to blast them with the
There's a lot of tears though from them, and that's supremely satisfying.
Supremely. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, there's tons of stuff going on in this game that people just don't expect. Like we talked about the real time strategy element. There's the spot where excuse me, where you just get to climb the mountains and then you rappel down, and then your Pokemon it pops out of the little holes and knocks you off, and you fall to your death.
Oh man,
that was a little sad, but
that was.
It felt it was such an intense moment.
It was
that I was really.
Did you find the secret when you're falling? There's one little ledge that you can grab onto, and if you have the power pad from the NES, you can actually get into world class track meet at that point in the game. It's like this.
What?
I know, it's an Easter egg, but
that's crazy.
The graphics are kind of potato compared to the rest of the game, but whatever. It's kudos to them.
I'm waiting for the Gravity Gun DLC. That'll change. Totally change the game.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. So, all right, let's. our apologies if you've played this game. It's late. All right, let's get into our top 5 list. All right, we're back with our top 5, and this week we are doing the top 5 NES hidden gems. There are so many games that
there's just so many games on the NES. Let's be real.
Yeah, there are. Yep. Actually,
the choices are just
fewer than are on the Switch at this point. But
well, yeah. Not for long. If we're releasing 20, 30 a week after.
Yeah. Yep.
But
I'm
digital distribution
go through
changed the game.
It has. So I'm going to go through my honorable mention here, and I'm going to do it rapid fire. So my honorable mention is 6 games long. So here we go. I'm just going to say the game and like a word or two about it, but you should like check all these out if you're not familiar with any of them. And also I want to give one qualifier at the beginning of this because I was thinking through
good.
I was thinking through a lot of these games, and then I was thinking, you know what? I'm just going to do a quick Google search for this and like see what comes up as well, because I don't want to forget one that deserves to be on here. And on all of these lists, a couple of these games appeared on the list of like underrated games or whatever, and I thought everyone knew about that game, but I'll say what those are. So here we go. My first honorable mention is Nightshade, which is a kind of like gritty, graphic novel noir style game that's really cool. Then my next one would be Crystalis, and I don't think that's underrated or underappreciated or underknown, but maybe it is.
I've definitely heard of it.
Yeah, it's a great game, really good. So if you're not familiar with that, check it out. Futuristic Zelda, but swords still and cool. This next one was underbought when it came out. But Little Samson, if you've never played Little Samson or seen it, oh my goodness, it's Mega Man, but probably better than Mega Man, and graphically really good. But Little Samson, but if you want to get the cartridge now, you're paying over $1,000 for that. So don't do illegal things, but don't spend $1,000. So Little Samson, worth checking out. Uncharted Waters is a fantastic game of exploration, seafaring exploration. RPG elements. Great game. My next honorable mention would be Mighty Final Fight, which I would totally put on my top 5, but I tried to go with games that were perhaps a little less known. But Mighty Final Fight is better than Final Fight that came out on the Super Nintendo. It's chibi style characters, but like Hagar and not Ken. I don't know, whatever. Guy, I think. Okay. Anyways, the great beat 'em up game. And then the Guardian Legend. I've talked about that before on a previous episode. Top-down shooter, but then also top-down kind of Zelda type exploration where you're this like girl android that kicks butt and then transforms into a jet and does these flying levels. It's an amazing game. So the Guardian Legend. But that's my honorable mention.
I've heard of so few of those. Interesting. Okay, so my list of honorable mentions is a couple, and several of them are licensed. But let's start with one that's not. Gold Medal Challenge, which I've been trying to champion the last for several episodes now. I just want to make sure people understand this is a good game. Okay, this is if you turn your nose at Olympics types game, which are usually terrible. Let's be real, they usually are. This one is not, and it's just a lot of fun. So go check it out. Trust me on this. Seriously, Where's Waldo? It's not a bad game. And I know that because, well, first of all, it's a cool, they give you these big paintings you can look at. Most of them are original. They're not just taken straight out of the books, or at least they're adapted from the books, I played this a ton when I was a kid, and it actually had like a storyline that you progressed through. And so, but the reason I know it's better than other games is because they released a sequel or another one of this later, going into the Genesis era, and it was just straight up awful, just real bad, because there was no story to it. It was just like literally some pictures sort of from the books, and that was like the Great Wall of Search or something. But just straight up, the original Where's Waldo for the NES is actually good, and it has some exciting moments to the end. You get to go on a rocket ship and go to the moon and all kinds of fun stuff. So, and there's time limits and whatever. It's great. And then we are going to have another episode where we talk about a top 5 list of most or best educational games, and one of the best ones on the NES was Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego. I was a huge fan of every Carmen Sandiego. I played basically every one there was. I caught Carmen in pretty much everything there was. The time one is pretty cool. You had to the game came with a giant 2-inch thick dictionary, or like Encyclopedia Britannica kind of thing, and you basically just looked up all the answers in the book.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was pretty fun. I don't know if the NES game came with that, but you might have just had to know. They didn't have the internet back then. And then Bible Adventures. Bible Adventures, my friends.
I don't think that's a good game at all.
No. 1/3 of that game is actually good. The Noah's Ark minigame is actually pretty fun.
No, it's not. It's just a retrieval. It's just retrieval missions.
But it had some character to it, and it was fun.
The Moses one where you could throw Moses in the river is just like I know. I mean, ultimately that's, but I mean, oh, you just drop Moses, and sometimes you just fall off your hands, you're running, right, and then suddenly he's just gone. You're like, what? Come on.
The other one was like a puzzle game, right? It was like was it the Moses one? No, not Moses.
I remember the Moses.
It was like the Exodus or something. It was like a puzzle game, I feel like.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on it, but
anyway, it's an honorable mention. It's not actually on the list, okay, but Bible Adventures is not. It's not terrible. It had a little bit of goodness to it.
I remember my parents rented it for us from Blockbuster. They came home and we were like, "Oh, okay, we played it," and I was just like, "This is not good." But but anyways,
I'll say this: I've seen much worse games based on the Bible.
Oh yeah. What was that? The Spiritual Armor one, or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Really bad.
All
right. So we're going to get into the actual top 5 now, and we're going to start with number 5. My number 5, I believe I've mentioned it before, but Wario's Woods is it's the best Tetris style game ever, and you're just going to have to take my word for it on that, because if you haven't played it, you might be skeptical when you hear a claim like that. You're like, no, he's speaking in hyperbole. But if you've played it, you're going, I can hear you nodding your head in the future as you listen to this episode, because Wario's Woods is the best Tetris style game ever. If you got 3 colors in a row of anything with a bomb included, it would eliminate those things. But the real strategy was trying to get 5 or 6 or 7 things eliminated in one, and you're working as Toad inside this tree trunk, picking up things and moving them and manipulating the things that have fallen into the order you want them. You can pick up singular items, or you can pick up a whole stack depending on which button you press. And what on top of like that being fun, there was also boss battles in it. There were extra challenge modes, time trials, and like it was such a good game. It was one of the last games released on the NES, and it's just a fantastic game. So if you haven't ever checked it out, you should check that out.
Puzzle games don't do nearly enough with single player or adventure mode type things, or like boss battles, those kind of things. They don't do nearly enough of those.
I agree. I think this might have this if in my knowledge, this is the first one that ever did, and it did it really well. So,
okay, awesome. All right, my number 5 is another licensed game, Home Alone 2. I played this game quite a bit when I was a kid. It's probably worse than I remember it, but it was still a lot of fun. I just remember it is. I'll give you this. It is very difficult, but I remember having a close connection with that game, and you get to go through like your uncle's warehouse place, and you got the crooks coming after you, and then you end up like, I don't think I ever actually beat the game, but I got really close. I got all the way to New York City, and you actually like climb the New York Christmas tree to get to the top. But there's rats of course there's rats in the Christmas tree. And so
I remember that. That's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
That's right. Those darn rats in the Christmas tree will murder you on your way to the end. And so I never actually beat it. I should YouTube that sometime. But yeah, it definitely, there was, you had this sliding mechanic, actually. You'd go and you'd like jump down or something, and then you just slide on your knees across the floor. I don't remember why, but
that's a scene from the ice rink in Home Alone 2.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I guess I
or
didn't
maybe
think
Home
about
Alone
that.
1. It was one.
But he could do it in any environment. He could do it any level.
Permanently greased his knees. That's awesome.
Right. I should revisit that game someday. It'd be fun. But anyway, if you haven't played it, it's pretty decent. It's challenging, but it's pretty decent.
Cool. All right. On to number 4. My number 4 would be a game called Rampart. Rampart was
Never heard of it.
I'm gonna give you. I may have mentioned it briefly like a year ago on the podcast, but the genre that the best way I could describe the genre is it's a puzzle combat strategy game. It's Tetris with cannons. You work to enclose castles. The game has 2 rounds to it. It's a series of multiple I think there's 5 like battles of like 2 rounds each. Well, the first round is picking your castle and then building your castle wall. And if you enclose a castle, you get to place cannons in it. So sorry, there's 3 stages to it. Build the walls, then place the cannons, and then you have ready, aim, fire. You get the voiceover in it and everything, and then you try to shoot either the other person's castle. Pretty much. That's pretty accurate. You would either, if you were going 2-player, you would shoot the other person's walls, or if it was 1-player, you're shooting ships out in the bay. And it was great multiplayer, shooting the other person's walls and like trying to shoot every other section of the wall, because then once the battle part was done, you went back to a build phase with Tetris style wall pieces. But if you were playing 2-player, you could systematically like break apart their wall just little by little, so that they wouldn't get Tetris pieces that could fit and like enclose the wall again. Because if you just like cleared out the whole wall, it was like, oh great. Like that's easy for them to re-enclose it. But if you like have just little a checkerboard of wall pieces left, you can't place a Tetris piece then. Like the strategy then became like, oh, they're doing that to my wall. So you go back and try and blow up your own wall so that you'd have like a clear opening to be able to just start plunking pieces down. So really deep strategy, but fun game. Rampart. If you haven't ever checked it out, there you go.
Sounds like a lot of walls.
Yeah.
It's all right. I guess that's the point. Ramparts, right?
Yep.
Okay, my number 4 is Gotcha, the sport, which is a silly name, but it's actually pretty cool. This was the closest I ever got on the NES to a true light gun, like the light gun arcade experience. Basically, it was just a side-scrolling game, kind of like you would go to the arcade and you have those machine gun things that you would be able to actually physically click and shoot with, and it was basically it was Duck Hunt, but there were military people there, and it kept scrolling along and going through, and it was all fake. Apparently, it was like paintballs or something like that, but it was it was still really fun and really kind of engaging. There was just lots of different. Of course, there's the the city level, and then the snow level, and then these different stereotypical layers. I don't think there was a lava level, but there was definitely lots of cityscapes and winter times, and I had a lot of fun with that game. It was finally another way to use your NES light gun rather than just Duck Hunt.
Duck Hunt and then clay pigeon shooting.
Right. Yeah.
And then Hogan's Alley. So
I don't know Hogan's Alley, but okay.
Yeah, or maybe that was a light gun game, I believe. Anyways, all right. Number 3. My number 3 is a game called Solstice. Solstice was an isometric view game. Yeah. I'm a sucker for isometric graphics, and it's man, you play as this wizard working your way through this really cool world, and the map of it is great. I just love the look of the whole game. It's just a really well made game. But then I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the soundtrack was done by Tim Follin. And if you aren't familiar with that name, Tim, and then it's Follin. If you're not familiar with Tim Follin, you need to check out his soundtracks. Man, they're so good. So that the soundtrack to Solstice is mind blowing. It for what he can do on an NES cartridge just is insane. So
we should do a review of it.
We should. Yeah, Solstice is a fantastic game, and worthy of at least checking out, seeing what it looks like and what it sounds like if you're not going to play it. But there's another one for those of you that are out there that are keeping notes. So
awesome. Okay, my number 3 is a game called Space Shuttle Project, and it is exactly what it sounds like. You get to drive the space shuttle. You get to go up into space. I have, especially the last year or two, but really for a long time, just been a space nut, and I love reading all the histories of the space race and of the Apollo program and the Mercury program and all these things. Space shuttle not as much, but this game was still pretty cool. Honestly, I never beat it. It was, again, I had a lot of NES games because I was a kid and I was bad at games. But I just remember renting it over and over again and only ever getting to I think I got to the 3rd level once. Not because it's a horribly difficult game, but because I'm a bad gamer. But it's really neat. You get to go through a launch sequence, and then it takes you. The graphics and the colors are pretty neat and they change gradually as you get higher and higher into the air. And there's all these little timing mini games where it's like, hey, turn your pitch this way or whatever. But essentially, it's just stop the line in the bright space on the line there as it's kind of going back and forth. Over and over, you do that to do each different kind of section of it, or to release the boosters, or to whatever it is. And then once you get into space, then you get to do all the different things that they did in space. So you kind of shift things. You open satellites. You get to do repairs on satellites out there. So you got your little astronaut guy. He's floating along, and you're using a little jetpack to get out to certain areas to replace different sections of the space station, spacecraft, whatever. And then you get to come back home. And there's 4 or 5 different missions that you can play. And again, they're all kind of based on those mini games of stopping the moving line in the correct space. But again, just a simple idea, and I learned some things about space, I think.
Awesome.
Not as much as I did in Where in Space is Carmen Sandiego, mind you, but which is a hilarious, time of history. So yeah, Space Shuttle Project. Just check it out. It's fun.
Speaking of space, really quick side note: have you ever played Kerbal Space Program?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's one of my just the best games. It's so good. So
it's excellent.
Yep. All right. Number 2. Here we go. My number 2 is a game that was released on the Super Nintendo as well as the NES, and this one, which by the way, so was Uncharted Waters, which I mentioned in my honorable mention. But my number 2 is Gemfire. Gemfire was a turn-based strategy game with some tactics in between the levels of how are you going to be diplomatically with the surrounding nations. It all took place on this island where you were, as your country were trying to invade different territories and wipe out other leaders, or maybe ally with them and control the island. When you would go into a battle, you wound up having really cool monsters and troops to command, and there were really great wizards that were out on the battlefield too. And you really wanted to make sure that your wizard stayed alive because they could just lay waste to certain kinds of enemy troops. But a really great game, Gemfire. I spent many hours playing that game. I owned it until last summer when I sold most of my NES collection. I sold Uncharted Waters as well, and many games that I was sad to see go, but they were dust collectors for me at that point because I play them all via other means. But Gemfire, such a good game.
Nice. All right, so my number 2 is another licensed game. It's Bart versus the Space Mutants, which some might argue is relatively well known. Did you know there were 4 Simpsons games on the NES?
I didn't really like any of the ones that I did play, but I knew there were a few, but I didn't know there were 4. So
yeah, so Bart versus the Space Mutants it's not amazing, but it's a fun little platformer, and there's some unique mechanics in it. You're trying to save the world from the aliens who are trying to take over the world, I guess. Excuse me. But you have this spray can, and for some reason you have to spray everything red purple. Maybe it's vice versa. I don't remember. It's Simpsons. So you go around spraying things. Yeah. And then there's aliens just kind of jumping around, and there's humans that are disguised or aliens that are disguised as humans, and so they give you these X-ray goggles, and so whenever you see a human, you have to use them to see whether they're actually a human or whether they're actually an alien. And if you can, then you got to jump on their head and like you do to destroy enemies, just right. to bring down evil empires, jump on people's heads. So. But there's some fun levels, and some fun mechanics. The carnival level in particular used some really fun things. There's even some basic puzzles within it. So there's one spot where there's a spot where in the carnival there's the classic thing where if you use the hammer and you hit what's the word I'm looking for? You hit the thing and the bell goes up, and you got to ring the bell by hitting it hard enough. You know what I'm saying? But there's but there's a way you can actually climb up the structure, and then the only way to actually make it get high enough, or for the thing to get high enough, is for you to go all the way up this tower and then jump off, which is several screens down, which seems like I'm going to kill myself. But no, if you take a leap of faith and just jump down, you land on the seesaw the correct way, it sends it up and you win. And so just fun little things like that. Just some, they nail a lot of the characters pretty well. Not that there's a ton of dialogue or anything, but just the situations they're in are kind of relatively absurd, and some of the bosses you get to fight are fun. I never actually beat this game. Again, I'm a bad gamer, especially when I was a kid. But I had a lot of fun playing through the first level or 2 of this. Because that's about as far as I got. It's pretty hard. It really is pretty hard. But yeah, there's some good stuff. So Bart versus the Space Mutants.
I was always a little disappointed with the Simpsons games on the Nintendo Entertainment System because the arcade game was so good.
Sure. Yep.
And then I never felt like the NES games. That's what the experience I wanted, because you got TMNT
right.
2, the arcade game. I was why can't they do that on the NES? But they never did.
Sure.
So.
There was a decent one on Super NES. It was Bart's Nightmare, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's where you go into, he's dreaming that he's late for school or something, and so he's got papers, and he's got to go pick up all the papers that he lost, and each one of them becomes a dream mini game thing. It's fun.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, here we go. The moment you've all been waiting for, our number ones. Here we go. My number one is a game that is... This might come as a surprise, Brett, but here we go. My number one is a game called Shatterhand. And Shatterhand, let me just say, that cover art. Oh, my goodness, that cover art. Oh, man. If you've never looked up Shatterhand cover art, just whatever you're doing, if you're driving on the road, just put the car in cruise control and get your phone out and look at it. Check it out, because the cover art...
Don't take his advice. Don't take his advice.
The cover art to Shatterhand is amazing and so bad, and the game is so good. It is so good. It's a really great action platformer with a...
Oh, man, I see the box art now.
Isn't it so bad? But then the game is amazing. And like the sprite of the character you play as is fairly large for an NES game. Not overly large, but fairly large. Really cool power-up mechanic with like... When you kill certain enemies, you have this little flying robot companion, and it was like alpha and beta or something like that, and a combination of alpha and beta power-ups would power up your little robot buddy in certain ways. And so based on what kind of power-ups you're getting, your robot power-up could be different every time. I think there were like 10 or 8 different possibilities of what that power-up could be for your robot. And then there are times where it would join with you, and like... But the soundtrack in it is amazing. It's like this really well-written, like, I'm not a huge metal fan, but it's like a well-written metal soundtrack, and it's just so good. If you've never checked out Shatterhand, I've said that about every one of these games, but check out Shatterhand, because man, it's good, and the box art's so bad. So so that's my number one. But psych, I have an extra one, which, Brad, why don't you take your number one, because it's the same one for me. So go ahead.
That's right. My number one, of course, if it hadn't gotten on earlier, we have to say it, Dusty Diamond's All-Star Softball.
Oh, man.
I said baseball. I don't know why I wrote the baseball, but yes, softball. We've talked about this quite a bit, but the just the heart and the character and the charm of this game, the special rules for the different fields that you play on, the game within the game of choosing your characters, so many good things that just set really apart from any other sports game on.
Ever maybe
NES. Maybe ever, yeah.
The player picking is just the best, but yeah. That's awesome.
Anything else to say about it, Mark?
No, I think we've waxed nostalgic about it in probably 10 or more episodes, and it's worthy of it all. But yeah, Dusty Diamonds. Yeah. So cool. Awesome. All right, so that's our top 5 list. Next up is what we've been playing. All right, we're back with what we've been playing. I'll take the lead on this one. I've been playing more Octopath Traveler. I know last time I mentioned I'd just been getting back into it after not playing it much for the month and a half of intense marching band. But I am back in deep with that game, and I have finished 3 of the Chapter 4s. I've got a few left so 5 Chapter 4s left to go. I'm on the 4th one right now, and there's so many like extra side dungeons that I'm finding for end game content as well. So I love that game. It's just. Are you
feeling like you are? I can hear the sleep. Sorry. Side note. Are you feeling like you are
going to beat it tomorrow on my snow date? No, sorry. Go ahead. Keep.
No, like, do you feel like you're at a fun level where you can just like one shot everything and go around, or is it?
It scales. Where are you at? The difficulty does scale, but the Huntress Hanit, who I finished her Chapter 4, so she can finally leave the party. Your first character that you pick, you have to finish their Chapter 4 before you can sub them out of your party. But I've just kept her in, and so she's really high level right now, and so she doesn't one-shot enemies, but she definitely makes the battles easy.
Right.
The bosses though, I try to. There's extra classes you can get at the end of the game that are like extra special classes, but you have to beat a really tough boss to get it. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to do a lot of grinding to be able to get that. But man, it's just such a good game. The soundtrack is. The more I play it, I'm just falling more in love with the soundtrack. So
we're gonna have to go back to that and do another soundtrack review. I mean, you did your review with it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worthy of an in-depth soundtrack review. So, Octopath Traveler, a lot of that. I've also been getting back into Fortnite a little bit more and more. There's a really fun mode that just came out called Food Fight that I've been playing with a friend of mine late at night every once in a while. And it's fun. And there's so many different modes out right now that I can jump into the solo mode and do okay because the more skilled players are doing the more competitive stuff. So, but yeah, it's really fun. I think it's a fun game. I've also, played a little bit of Splatoon 2, but I also want to mention, this is not something I've played, but, was something that I mentioned on our, page earlier today. I've been watching Summoning Salt videos, specifically the one that he just released, I think yesterday, on Super Mario 3, the world record progression. If you are not familiar with Summoning Salt, we've talked about it maybe 3 times on our podcast, but you should check out that channel. It's a fantastic, mini documentaries of the progression of world records and how they get faster and faster in games. Some of the videos have some language. I'll just let you know that right now, because you're watching, the videos of streamers and they're, whether they're people that use colorful language or not, sometimes they maybe it just slips out when they die right at the end of a game when they had a world record run going. So it's a little forgivable, but man, it's such riveting viewing. So
it's really well done. Well done.
So
I can't imagine the
dedication
putting those videos together. How much footage would you have to go through to get just he's going back to 2010.
Yeah, sifting through.
Where do you?
Oh man,
so much research to get those right.
It's so well done. So, yeah,
very good. Okay, so what I've been playing. Well, you say it with me. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Of course.
I continue to play. So I finally left Ganon's castle. Ganon's still alive and well, of course, but
come on, do it! Plunge that sword into. Oh man! All right.
No, it's good. So I got all of the Royal Guard stuff that I was looking for, and the Hylian Shield, and all that fun stuff. So that was great. So now I'm back on the quest, the main quests, well, the side quests, I guess, and the Korok seeds and all that.
It's not the main quest at all.
Well,
Zelda is waiting for you, and you're just out here collecting Korok seeds.
But you know what? We've been waiting for 100 years now. They can wait a little bit longer.
Come on, Zelda, you'll be fine. Oh, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, she made me wait for 100 years before she woke me up.
Oh, is there some spite in this? Wow, you're a spiteful hero. Okay.
Right. That's right. The still waters run deep, man. All
right, keep going.
Okay, so anyway, I finally got so I'm working on finishing up getting all the chests from the DLC. So I finally got the Korok mask, which is cool because as I'm continuing to look for other side quests and things that I'm doing, all of a sudden I'll get that he'll get his mask will kind of twinkle and shake a little bit, and there's a Korok seed nearby, and it's really nice. And I actually got to say, Korok seeds in general, they're supposed to be everywhere, and they're not supposed to be a super challenging puzzle or anything. And certainly if you've collected more than a few, you realize that there's definitely patterns to the different types of puzzles that there are. But I gotta say, I was impressed. I found a Korok puzzle that was genuinely surprising and clever and challenging. Something I'd never seen before. Basically, I was in this little creek or river, if you want to call it, and I could see, sometimes you see Korok puzzles with 2 magnetic blocks that are chained together, and you have to put sometimes you have to put them in like a tree trunk, or sometimes you have to just move them to the certain places. Excuse me. You have to put them in certain places or whatever. And so I was looking around. I was like, well, what do I do? Like, because the what I was looking at, I could see 3 giant rocks sticking out of the water, and on 2 of them were these magnetic rocks, but one of them wasn't. Wait, let me start over. There was one magnetic rock on the big rock by itself without a chain on it, and then there was another one on the second one. And the chain one was just sitting in the water. Anyway, I figured, well, maybe I need to get all 3 of them onto a rock, right? There's 3 magnetic stones, so let's put them on the rock. Problem was, every time that I tried to get the third one onto the rock, the chain would move, and the small rocks would fall off the big rocks. And so I was like, oh, that's not it. So I started looking around again. I was like, maybe I try to find a tree trunk. Maybe I can try to find some other thing I can put it in, whatever it is. Looked for a long, long time. Just could not figure out. In fact, I wasn't even sure that there was a Korok seed associated with this, because I had come back to, I have seen this puzzle for many times now in my playthrough, 200 and some hours, whatever. I've just kept coming back to it, never been able to figure it out. But now that I had the Korok mask, I was like, oh, okay, yes, there definitely is something here. So I was like, all right, well, what do I do? And so I still couldn't figure out. But I kept coming back to that. I think I'm supposed to get the 3 small rocks on top of the 3 big rocks. I think that's what I'm supposed to do, but I can't get it because that dumb chain keeps pulling the third rock down when I try to put it on. I know it's very confusing to listen to. I'm sorry. But finally, I had this epiphany, as often happens in any great Zelda puzzle, where I was like, wait a second. What if I put one of the chained rocks on the big rocks, freeze it, like do the time freeze thing,
oh, right,
and then magnetically move the other rock onto the big one. Sure enough, I did, quick little moving around here and freeze this one here, then move it to that. Korok seed pops. And I was like, wow, that was really cool, really clever. And like that's the kind of puzzle that I would expect to find in like a shrine,
Yeah, totally.
And it was just totally in a world, literally a world of, lots of the same puzzles of moving one rock into a circle of rocks, or just a lot of them had to do with rocks apparently, or lifting a rock and finding a Korok underneath there, right?
Or pruning a tree, plucking an apple here and there.
Right. This was a genuinely fun and genuinely clever, even if a little frustrating one. But when I finally figured it out, I felt really great. So that was cool, and I will also say that I am very glad that I now have the Korok mask, because in a couple of the places that I've found now with its help, I'm like, dude, I would have never seen this. Never in a million years would have seen this.
Yep.
So I'm glad that is going to aid me in my quest. I still got about 250 or so to go, but I'm making progress. So that's Zelda. What else have I been playing? I wrote down Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I have it, borrowed it from the library, but haven't actually played it yet.
I have so many games that I have rented from the library that I'm waiting to receive.
It's a great service.
I just got Mario Party 9. There were 38 holds, and for some reason I got it. I don't know if they bumped me up or something, but so I'll be playing that tomorrow on my snow day.
Awesome. That's right. Fingers crossed. I don't know, 6 to 9 inches, man. That's gonna be good.
Yep.
Okay, so and then just also been real. I mentioned last week that I had just gotten and started Hitman 2. Been really digging into that game. I've played as it's meant to be, the first level probably 5 or 6 times now, and each playthrough can take anywhere from 45 minutes to 2.5, 3 hours, depending on where, as you learn the level and get used to things and kind of sneak around and do this thing. So just having a blast with that. And actually, one of the cool things about the Hitman 2 is that it allows you, if you have the old game, to upload all of the old levels from Hitman 1, Season 1, into Hitman 2 with all the new mechanics and challenge type things that they added for Hitman 2. So revisiting some of those as well. So love it.
Cool.
Don't sleep in that game. It's cool.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Yeah. That brings us to sort of the end.
Yeah, we do have an extra bonus feature coming up here. It's we're going to have a retrospective soundtrack review that Brad's going to be doing on Mario Sunshine, and that'll be coming up next.
Greetings and welcome. This is Brad Beyer from the Nintendo Directors here with a soundtrack retrospective review of sorts of Super Mario Sunshine. Probably one of the most polarizing 3D Mario games that's ever been out there. Some people just it didn't click with them. They didn't really get into the whole, Mario cleaning up, or what was the classic catchphrase? Clean is better than dirty. Great stuff. But it didn't really click with some people, and honestly, I found it to be a fantastic game. I think that it brings a lot to the table. I do understand, however, it's so hard to follow a game like Mario 64, which was so incredibly revolutionary for its time, for sure. And so, there's definitely a lot that, maybe expectations, of course, had to be crazy for what Super Mario Sunshine was going to be, and so it's just a little bit different than people probably expect a little bit. But anyway, we're not necessarily here to talk about the game as a whole. We're here to talk about the soundtrack. Now, again, in the grand scheme of Super Mario soundtracks in general, and particularly the 3D ones of the last 20 years, excuse me, I wouldn't necessarily say that the Mario Sunshine soundtrack is like super top tier. It definitely hadn't gotten to the Galaxy era, if you will, where Nintendo started using more fully orchestrated soundtracks. We did a soundtrack review for Super Mario Galaxy just a month or two ago, and that is a just incredibly well written, well produced music that helped take that game, which was already phenomenal, to the next level. But what Super Mario Sunshine does is it has this, it's still sort of in the MIDI era. There's just everything's all synthesized and everything. But what it does, it creates a perfect atmosphere for the sort of vacation theme that you've got. And so we're going to look at, I think it's four different tracks from this game that I think give a sort of a good picture of the overall design and sort of the flavor of the whole thing. So the largest hub area of the game, of course, is Delfino Plaza, and this is sort of the analog to the castle in Super Mario 64. Not quite the same idea, obviously, but very similar. Much larger environment. You could go all around the city. You could mess around with the different inhabitants. The weird, the Piantas, I think, is what they were called. The weird indigenous people of that world. But it was, it was a quaint little place, and it had a really fun theme to go along with it. So we're going to listen to a little bit of that right now. So, right out of the gate, I can already see our producer here, Brandon. He's just bobbing his head back and forth. This is just a simple little melody, and it's got that great guitar groove in the background there. And I want to make sure I get to the correct part here. There we go. It's sort of the perfect seaside theme, some great guitar picking going on. And I love the balance of, like I said, this sort of relaxing melody on top here with that sort of nervous energy of the doom going underneath there. And my apologies for singing along with it. Just, I can't help it sometimes. So, you have just sort of that nice balance of the really relaxed with the really sort of tense and hey, let's go have some fun kind of vibe that you get from that. So it uses a lot of the same motifs, a lot of the same chord progressions until you get to the second sort of half of it. This is the repeat of the theme again, and hopefully I think it comes up here in just a second. We're going to get to the sort of the B theme, if you will. There we go. And just that we have an accordion coming in here, which is kind of out of nowhere, And here we go. So you get the bongos that kind of go along with the original theme again, and it sort of adds another little flavor. Very islandy. That's a good way. That's my highly technical term for that. So I wanna cut this portion just a little bit here. So that's the actual main theme in the game. But I want to play you a little bit of one more recording, which probably the most played theme or played independent group that we've played on this podcast before, the Super Guitar Brothers. They do we met Mark especially knows these guys really well. I just think they do great work, and we just want to expose you to some cool stuff. So this is their version of Delfino Plaza. These are two classical guitarists, and they play this theme super fun, super well. Oh boy. Oh, there goes the ad. I knew it was going to happen. Cuts it off after 3 seconds of the movie. Excellent. Okay, and go. So this is, again, just another little take on that. Just a short little riff on this melody. And I just love the skill that these guys bring. It's so clean in the way they play, and they play with lots of musicality as well. Lots of vibrato, even in just the picking of that melody there, and those triplets. You hear that? That's not an easy thing to do on guitar. I can't do much of anything on guitar, so I have props for anyone who can truly play the classical style like that, which is great. Okay, so that is Il Delfino. And we're going to move on now here to another theme. Excuse me, I said Il Delfino. I meant Delfino Plaza, because the whole island is Il Delfino. Okay, so we're gonna go on to the theme from Gelato Beach now. So this is sort of so much of this music is supposed to be sort of inspired by that stereotypical Jamaican theme, okay, the islandy thing I was mentioning earlier, the guitars and the drums, percussion effects or whatever. But this is probably the most, the theme that plays into that the most. This goes straight up steel drum and the xylophones or whatever exactly types of mallet instruments, marimbas, they would use for that kind of theme. So here is the theme for Gelato Beach, if I can get the correct thing up here. Here we go, Gelato Beach. So fun little percussion intro, and there's the steel drums. Now, again, oh man, not again. That's so frustrating. I do apologize to our listeners. I had these all queued up, and it was gonna skip right over the ads, but then it didn't. My bad. Okay, so here is Gelato theme again. So I lost my train of thought. Oh, right. So the steel drums, like I said, for the fact that they are, this is all synthesized and it's sort of MIDI playing. It really does give a cool vibe, and those rolls they go very stylistically correct for the way you play those instruments, and it just works with this. So you got that bass line in the back, dum, 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 dum. Just super laid back, super fun to just feel the groove. And then this little theme in the back here, little tenor saxophone for you. And it's if you can hear those continue of the rhythms in the back there, you got maybe a little xylophone, or maybe even just a go-go bell or something like that. And then they add this, what I assume is sort of a violin, or their synthesized version of a violin. It's not great, but it fits the theme of the style of them. And then of course we go back to the main theme again, and then in a minute you're gonna hear the bongos come back. Yeah, just a fun little groove. So there's Gelato Beach. Let's kind of move on here. This is going to be totally different, and actually, before I even do this, I'm going to let this play for a second, just so I don't get have an issue with some of the ad stuff there. Anyway, so the next tune we're going to go over is the Shadow Mario theme. Now, Shadow Mario, this is in the game, of course. Shadow Mario is the one you're sort of chasing and trying, because he's basically the one who's impersonating Mario, and he's creating all of the goo and the havoc and all that throughout the island. And so whenever you have to, in each world, you have to chase him down, and you have to not really fight him. You just chase him and catch him, and then he goes away. And so this is the theme that plays when he shows up. Now, I like this tune because it's so different than a lot of the rest of the music in this whole soundtrack. It's sort of a fun and highly synthesized take on the underground theme, of course, from traditional Mario. But it's also got this just little bit of a tinge of just a little bit of the sinister coming into this sort of highly playful and upbeat game. And so again, this track is pretty short. It doesn't do a whole lot. But again, everyone loves the underground theme, and then this is just an interesting way that those percussion beats in the back and that bass line that just keeps going down and down and down. So just pretty neat little diversion from the standard fare of what you're doing in Super Mario Sunshine. So there's that. And we have one more tune to cover from this soundtrack, and that is probably my favorite one from the whole thing. And this is it's called a secret course, technically, and that basically just means it's the areas where Mario is robbed of his FLUDD pack, and he has to do these challenges in these rooms that are completely they're like traditional 3D puzzle 3D platformer stages, I mean. And there's some pretty stiff challenges in a lot of these, especially if you want to get all of the secrets and all the when you have to go back later and get the red coins in these stages and whatnot. It's a lot of fun to kind of go through. So let's take a listen to this. This, of course, is a great riff on the classic traditional Mario theme, but with voices. Yeah, this is great stuff. Again, kind of weird because of the MIDI thing, their actual voices, but this, with those doo-doo, it's really quite neat. Just the acapella thing, and then there's like a snap in the background, but that's basically all there is going on. Otherwise, it's just basically just voices, and so that great bass line kind of repeats over and over. Here's that bass line, doom, 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 some walking bass underneath the rest of the theme. I love the syncopated nature of this, and it works with the way they're doing the echoing of each other and the sort of almost fugue-like or round-like parts where they really start layering that melody on top of each other. And this bass solo, really sweet. Love it. And it's fun just the way they throw in different little things. So like you'll hear the female or the high range voices coming up here. They just throw in two little notes. There it is. So just really creative uses of the Mario theme, and I always remember just whenever I get in these stages, I just like sit there tapping my toe as I'm playing along and have a great time. So you really can't go wrong with that. There's all kinds of cool stuff to hear with that. So that's just a little picture of the Super Mario Sunshine soundtrack. Again, maybe not the most epic, most grand, most musically enriching or deep soundtracks out there, but still really solid, still a lot of fun for a great game, of course. If I were to give this my official Nintendo Director's rating, I would give it 12 bananas in a basket out of 10. So if you ever played that game, you understand. So that's pretty good. So I would give that a solid 12 bananas in a basket. All right. So once again, this has been Brad Beyer for the Nintendo Directors. This was the soundtrack review for Super Mario Sunshine. Hope you've enjoyed it. Check out the rest of the episode, and we'll see you next time. I did a great job, didn't I?
Yes, you did, Brad.
Gee, thanks. It only took like 12 seconds.
I know.
That's how it goes. Anyway, so that brings us to the wrap-up, folks. Thanks so much for listening. We are, just want to kind of review, we are an every other week podcast. Our next show, so like I said, this show should be posting on November 29th, which means the next show is into December. Oh, man. December 13th. That's my concert night.
Smash December.
Right. Yeah, yep. Smash will be out. Smash will be out by then.
I know.
Wait, is that right? Yeah, that's right. It's crazy. That's crazy. So anyway, that's the day you can expect that. You can find us in all the podcasting places. You can find us on YouTube, and please do go check out this YouTube page now. We've got Brandon Pruitt doing some awesome producing for us there, and he deserves to have that stuff seen. It's really cool. You can also find us on Twitter at N_directors. You can write in to be part of the show, Nintendo Directors Podcast at gmail.com. And yeah, I think that's about it. Anything else for the good of the cause there, Mark?
No. Play more video games.
Play the games, yes. Yep. For sure. All right. Stay warm out there, y'all.
We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.